Today we're doing the best MK game of all time, tier list edition. But before we start, I actually held a massive poll and you all decided that MK9 is the greatest game of all time, and so therefore we have some similarities in what we feel. Maybe we don't know, depending on the takes. Make sure you drop your hot takes and also get involved with us, just because we have polls and we're constantly doing active content, man. So a thumbs up, a like, a comment, whatever you want, or drop your hot take, man. Let's go ahead and get into our tier list, because I mean let's just go, man. It's exciting. It's Mortal Kombat. What do we got here? All right, we're gonna start off with the OG Mortal Kombat, the first one that ever started. I'm gonna start off hot on Mortal Kombat. So this is a hard game to really actually break down. It was new. It was unheard of to have a fighting game like this, and it did make an impact. I wouldn't say a dramatic impact, but it was new to us, right? Experimentation. It had everything that, at least the fundamental, right? It's a foundational game, so it doesn't go to B tier or lower. I'm gonna have to go with A tier on the OG MK1. I just feel like they started, you know, the movement of what we got now, but it didn't really get it to the level that we really acknowledge most when it comes to these tier lists. So it could change. We'll see how it keeps going, man. Again, these are just my opinions. These are not definitive. Make sure you drop your takes. This is going to be interesting. MK2. Now, this is where it starts changing a lot, right? This is where we see some hidden stuff. We see Reptile. There's a lot. This is from the OG MK to MK2 in the 90s. Now, MK2 is where it made the noise. It's where it's translated itself. Now we got all the gore. We got everything going. Like, that was so next level as far as the fighting mechanics and everything. The roster is a little bit better now. MK2 for sure is S tier, no question. That's when it started getting a lot better, in my opinion, where we recognize it today, at least in some of these higher tiers. Now, I could possibly put it higher A. We'll just have to see as we move on. But right now, I'm gonna do MK2, man. MK2's got to be S tier, because from the OG MK to MK2 was such a massive jump in a video game that was really unheard of, to where now we're starting to get some noise on this. Yeah, so that's how it goes. So MK3, so what happened? Now we're gonna do Mortal Kombat 3. I remember this game, man. This game was I might have to go with this game on C tier. The reason being because this game, just MK3, the roster was slashed so drastically. So we went from OG MK to MK2, which is insane, and then it went to MK3, which kept the insane gameplay now that we all are familiar with. 2D's going crazy. It's starting to get there. MK is almost like at some crazy level, and you know, MK3 decides, like, yeah, we're gonna do this, but we're slashing some of the coolest characters off the roster. I believe like Johnny Cage and Scorpion weren't even in this game, and everybody was like, what the hell? Johnny Cage and Scorpion in MK2 and OG MK is like, everybody was picking them for the most part, and therefore in MK3 it was like, yo, what the hell is going on? So they were not in this roster. I believe there's somebody else too, though. I forgot, but hell no, we hated this. As soon as I bought this game as soon on release in Super Nintendo, bro, I remember that shit, and I remember putting that shit on, and I didn't see Johnny Cage or Scorpion, and I was like, excuse me? And so it was such a shocker to not have them on that. And that's when it goes then, which is released. The shocker, one of my personal favorites, came around the clock, and it was Ultimate MK3. Ultimate MK3 now has the biggest roster and brings Scorpion, and therefore this Ultimate MK3 was crushing it. Now, immediate S tier. Here is the reason why it goes in front of MK2, hands down. Now, here's the jump that we really wanted. So we gotta ignore just regular MK3. To me, that's not the echelon of what we're looking for. The Ultimate MK3 was the jump we were looking for, that they really got that shit peaking. Now the Ultimate MK3 was the finalized stamp of MK is the most mainstream fighting game. It is transcended so far around the 90s movies. It also has It did everything. Everybody on Halloween wanted to be Kitana, Scorpion, Sub-Zero. It was just so much shit. You got classic Sub-Zero. You got human Sub-Zero, like the good Sub-Zero, bad Sub-Zero in here. The Bihan version. You got Noob is in here. Ermac is in here. This was by far, we were so shocked to see a roster and a fighting game. And then the soundtrack was incredible. And then on top of the soundtrack, the stage like explosions. Basically, you have stage transitions when you uppercut and they go into it breaks like the ceiling and you go into another stage. The soundtrack that I mentioned again, it is so incredible. This game was just ahead of its time. Even just the Super Nintendo version, the SNES version, the soundtrack was incredible. Sega sounded okay, and then the arcade version, to this day, people are still playing that and uploading videos to this day. By far an S tier Mortal Kombat game that we had never seen, because I'm gonna actually explain that in a little bit as to why it's still one of the greatest ones, because people use these a lot in comparison to Ultimate MK3, therefore the best soundtrack ever Mortal Kombat has ever offered. And then, like what I said, the arcade version was insane. I would see Tekken to the side. I would see Street Fighter over there. Man, I tell you, I'd see Killer Instinct over there. But when you saw Ultimate MK3 arcade lines, bro, you saw the quarters being set. You saw the lines. You saw how crazy it was. The pre-internet era, all that shit. This is 90s. Blew your mind, bro. The best game possibly. At least my personal favorite, no question. We're gonna go to Sub-Zero game. Sub-Zero, I'm gonna put it on C tier for now. I think the mythologies, I guess. I mean, a spin-off, I don't think this spin-off came first, right? Was this? Yeah, it was this. Was this one came first? I don't know, but I'm gonna put that C tier. I think it was decent. I like it. It was solid, I guess, for what it was. Again, we don't look for Mortal Kombat for those types of spin-offs all the time, but it was cool for what they had an idea of what they wanted to continuously evolve, I guess you can say. Next is MK Trilogy. So here's what I was talking about earlier about Ultimate MK3. So Ultimate MK3, you had the actual platform versions, and then you had the arcade version, which was a little bit better, and then you had the Trilogy version. Now Trilogy is hard because now this is by far up to date. This was the biggest roster that we had ever seen, and I think that I'm still gonna put that lower. I'll put it above OG Mortal Kombat. I know it's kind of weird to do that, but I think Trilogy gave us the biggest roster up to this part of time, and this was another installment, another extension. So it was such a thank you note, but it just didn't really execute. There's some glitches still. They added a couple of mechanics. It wasn't as great. It's long ass loading times on the PlayStation version. The 64 version wasn't as great. Ultimate MK3 was still way better. Just the fluctuation and how fast it was. Now it just took all Trilogy was an update of Ultimate MK3, but now on the PlayStation. So it was unheard of to see all those damn loading times and everything. Just like it took forever to get into shit, get shit rolling. Still in A tier. I wouldn't put it S tier though, because S tier is Ultimate MK3. All Trilogy was Ultimate MK3 with a little bit more steroids or a little bit more protein. MK3, Ultimate MK3 was MK3 on steroids, which we wanted initially, and then Trilogy was kind of just like a little bit more protein going on, a little bit more, but I think it failed at that notion. I think the simplification of the roster and dope ass gameplay and dope ass soundtrack is what makes Ultimate MK3, on top of just everything, just the experiment features, just what they really took the game. Again, that's what we really wanted, was Ultimate MK3. It was MK1, then it evolved to MK2, where we're like, oh shit. And Ultimate MK3 was like by far the best mainstream game up until that point. Trilogy was okay, same thing, but just a little bit more bigger roster. Mechanics just not as great, and the loading time was ass. I'll still put on A tier though. MK4, oh man, there's so much to say about this game, bro. Now again, this game could have some mixed, it could be some hot takes for people. This is where MK goes 3D era, I guess, partial 3D. It's getting there already. It's already technically entered its 3D era phase. Don't like it as much. I feel it's a little bit mid. I'm gonna put it B tier. I don't have anybody on B tier yet anyway. I think it's a great way to really start filling up that B tier. It shocked us that we went from Ultimate MK3, and Trilogy was still doable because we were like, well, it's still Ultimate MK3. It's just longer loading times, the Armageddon mechanic that they added, and some things were just kind of ass. Some things were very glitchy also. It wasn't as fluid and as loved as the arcade, but Trilogy was still technically Ultimate MK3. We saw MK4, everything changed, and we were just like, I think a lot of the times, one, the game was okay, it was relevant, but it changed so much that we were all just like, so people like me at this age, we are already transitioning more into our lifestyles now. Like I was a little bit younger at this time, so that's more of a personal thing. And then we went into like, basically we were getting into our older ages, and therefore the game was just so different. It just didn't feel like home to us. But in terms of a mechanic, it was okay. It introduced, like what I said, like that 3D era, but I mean, you seen like some of the like the reptile skins on here. You see everything. I don't really like the reptile skin on here, to be honest. Again, this is a hit or miss. I'll keep it right in the middle. I think it's a mid. I think it's the definition of a mid game. So y'all gotta let me know. Gold was actually better. I put gold in front of 4. So it's the same thing, 4, just with a little bit more, kind of like what they always do with some of these games now, like MK3, Ultimate MK3, MK4 Gold, basically. They usually have an update of all these games now, and so they usually started that early in the 90s first is when they really started all that stuff. So I would put MK4 Gold. I'd put that in front. I mean, I know that was for, was that for Advanced also? I don't remember, man, but I know that it was a better version of 4. That's all I remember, man. But it was alright, I guess. Again, still mid to me. And then finally, now we have put the stamp on the 3D era. So here's 4 starting with 3D era. We got Deadly Alliance. Deadly Alliance, I would say, in my opinion, bro, I know I might get shit for it. I'm going to put on B tier. I'll put it, yeah, I'm going to put it behind, bro. I don't think it's better than 4. I think at this part it started because midway, well, I'll talk about more of that later, but I feel like this era is getting a little weird. I know some people love this era a lot. It's a personalization. Again, I came from 2D, so I was just like, it's alright, I guess. I put Deadly Alliance behind it though. I don't know. It was something about it. It was cool, the Shang Tsung, the Quan Chi, but again, I don't know, man. Y'all gotta be letting me know what's up with that Deadly Alliance. Shaolin Monks. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Shaolin Monks, therefore S tier. I put it over MK2. And Shaolin Monks is the greatest spin-off probably in gaming history, not just Mortal Kombat. The greatest spin-off in Mortal Kombat history, the greatest spin-off possibly in gaming. There's no popular spin-off than Shaolin Monks. Shaolin Monks is like basically in people's top 5s for Mortal Kombat games. Shaolin Monks, what they did was insane because that was the era of like God of War and all that was really starting to hit peaks and stuff. And they decided to make their own variation of it, and it fit the replica format so well because guess what? Newsflash, MK has a lot of brutal shit and violence and gore and all that. So they were like, whoa, these hack and slasher games, running around, beat 'em up, sock 'em up games, we got that too. But guess what? We also, and you saw the God of War, you could do like combos and stuff like that. That's all Shaolin Monks reminded me of. It was the MK version of God of War, which is why I'll go back to another instant of why I'm reverting that. But yeah, it was like their version of God of War. So of course it crushed the scene. It took us by storm. You could do a secret. We can do Scorpion and Sub-Zero instead of Kung Lao and Liu Kang. And it's so fun. The story's fun. The gameplay is fun. The RPG / mini dabbles into an open world was dope. Like everything was so cool, bro. S tier, dog. Easy for a spin-off game. S tier, bro. Like it was so fun. Everybody loves this game. There's no way this game goes lower than S tier. For what Mortal Kombat did, they took a chance and they actually excelled at this. Versus other ones like Trilogy, I feel like they didn't excel as much. And then the 3D era, I feel like they didn't execute as high as we wanted. Now there's a lot of characters that are monumental, but I feel like the overall game, yeah, just S tier, bro. Like Shaolin Monks, hands down, bro. Easy, dog. Nobody even argues that. Deception, high A tier. I don't know, it could go S tier. I'll still put 2 over it. I'll put 2 because of the history from 1 to 2. The jump is just way different. Deception, I put A tier. I mean, I like what they did story mode wise. I think it's the best 3D era game in my opinion. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. It's the best 3D era game in my opinion. Yeah, I'll just do that. So that's technically my play format of what I think about this game. I mean, they had that open world. They also took another chance at the open world features, and they just have so much in there. So the content in there is dope. My favorite 3D era game for sure was Deception, no question. Armageddon, it goes into a B tier. I think I'm gonna put Armageddon in a B tier. The reason why, because this is where it got the best roster in the world, but they were so fucking lazy in this game. All of it was copy and paste. So much of a roster that they couldn't handle everything in that roster. And therefore, the game was very mid gameplay wise, but it was cool to see that appearance and that aesthetic of a huge ass roster. But I don't think that they did really well with this game, man. In my opinion, it was still cool. It's a rememberable like a 3D era game again. But my 3D era game, my favorite one for sure is Deception. But yeah, I would say that that's about right, man. Yep. So, and then we get into MKDC. Oh, MKDC is gonna be tough, man. It is the most hated game. I actually liked how fluid it was for a 3D era game. Now, the story with MKDC is what I'm going back to now earlier when we first started the 3D era in MK4. Now we're getting into MK8, which is MKDC. The final variation of 3D era. Midway had went broke after that Armageddon run. Or they were going bankrupt for the most part. They were going broke. And therefore, WB gives them an audition for this in order for them to actually even, you know, try to come back or get bought out or something like that. And so Warner Brothers does MKDC. The game was hated on a lot. I would still put it, I'm still going to put it B tier, low B tier, maybe high C tier. I think that it's overhated and underrated. So there's not really a grayscale of this game. It's either really overhated, one of the most overhated games in history for sure. And then it's also very underrated for what was going on in the realistic story of things, right? Like what I said, they were going bankrupt, and therefore it just this was their audition, and then it eventually gave us, you know, we'll go into more of that later, but this was their audition to continuously going to get the MK games that we have today with NRS, which is still questionable. We all know that, but still, at least it kept the history alive of a lot of these great games that we see like in the S and A tier for sure. Special Forces D, I don't care what nobody says. If you are trying to even argue that game, I don't want to hear it, bro. We're just not known for knowing Mortal Kombat like that. Like, just it's cool for what it is, you know, the Jax Sonya Essential, but that's not what we are, so it stays D tier. I'm not gonna explain myself. You could leave a comment, drop your hot take on Special Forces though if you want. Yes. I could feel it now. Mortal Kombat 9. In the poll, y'all voted this game to be the greatest game of all time. And yes, I agree. MK9 is the greatest game of all time. At least in my opinion, from what we have right now. I feel there is so much with this game. Continuing the story with what happened. Armageddon. Basically, Midway's going bankrupt. They have no clue. They audition with MK8. Warner Brothers is like, fuck, we got a lot of hate, but you know what? There's potential here still. It's Mortal Kombat. Cha-ching. Y'all are a brand. Y'all are famous. Y'all got the movies. Y'all are just more than a video game. Y'all are massive across the world. I'll give you a shot at MK9. Boom. NetherRealm Studios is now, well, this is Warner Brothers games still kind of, and then NetherRealm Studios later on, but MK9 gives us that next level. It's a love letter. They say they scratched everything. They said fuck 3D era. We failed the 3D era. We went bankrupt this era. Now instead we're gonna go back to 2D classics. We're gonna give you everything back. We're gonna add tag mode. We're gonna add content, test your luck, test your might. We're gonna have a great story mode, possibly the best story mode in the history of the game. We're gonna give you everything back that you all missed out on from like that MK4 to Armageddon or MK8 era MKDC. We're giving you it all back. Here you go. It was so fast, so fluid. It was a mixture of like Ultimate MK3 on top of even more shit going down. You got smoke. You got the greatest roster ever to be held in an MK game. It wasn't the most. Armageddon was the most, but look what happens when you have the most of characters. They couldn't really control it. This was a great amount of a roster, not too little, not too much. A lot of the Lin Kuei's back. You got Smoke, you got Ermac in here. Then this goes back to what the Shaolin Monks, what I said in terms of the God of War essential. You get Kratos in MK9, you get Freddy Krueger in MK9. MK9 is the greatest game ever created, and guess what? It's banned everywhere right now. They had lawsuits going down with Freddy Krueger right now. It's very, very like the sexual content. They can't really like put that shit because like the revealing of the ladies, just because MK was always like that, but MK9 really brings out that format. There's just a lot of stuff going down with this game. But by far, if this game was available online the same way this next game that I'm about to talk about, this game would always be talked about and still be streamed to this day, the way Ultimate MK3 is and the way this game is actually streamed to this day, and how we transition into MKX. MKX is definitely number 2 best game of all time. This is the only game that you could ever argue that is better than MK9, the sequel to what MK9 was. The gameplay sped up even a little bit more than what MK9 offered, so it's faster than 9 and faster than Ultimate MK3, which is predominantly the fastest games we had ever seen in Mortal Kombat. X is fast as hell. They have everything. They got the content. They got a little bit more mechanics and variations of your characters. But the one thing they lacked is that they didn't have the roster. But if you grew up with this game and you were too young for MK9, which MK9 was like 2011, MKX is still streamed to this day. It's still represented to this day and everything. And the reason being, the polls said it themselves, right? It's not just me. The reason being people claim X so much is because it's so available everywhere. You can buy it online to this day. You can buy it on Steam. You can buy it on Xbox stores. You can buy it everywhere. You can get all the content and stuff. With MK9, you can't do shit with it. You need the physical disc, and that is it. And so, yeah, if you have the physical disc, then you're good to go. If you don't, then it's MKX all day for you. In terms of the goated games, not even close. MK9, MKX, bro. That's it. Those are the only games you put at number 1. MKX was dope. Again, everything was cool. Just MK9 had the better roster. MK9 also had a little bit more of that, the color palettes that we were used to a lot more. The stages were more vibrant, the pit stage and all that stuff. At the end of the day, Mortal Kombat is very dark, but it does hold an aesthetic. And MK9 kind of masters that aesthetic more than MKX does, and it's visually attracting too and more appealing. So roster appealing, gameplay, and the love letter back to us OG fans, MK9 takes it, but MKX is still like the only arguable game that could be number 1 also. I'd still put 9 over it though. And then we get into MK11. MK11 in my opinion is B tier, probably. I just didn't like it. Maybe you could put it low A tier. I guess for the culture, I guess I'll put on A. I think if I was going like a hothead mode and not really clocking into what they offered, I'm putting it on a B tier. But A tier, I'll put it because due to their content. It sucks that their gameplay is ass cheeks, but they did have a lot of content, man. Especially when we look at MK1 right now, we look at MK11. It's like they had a lot of content, bro, and they actually provided those palettes. They had that classic stage also that was pretty dope. They did give a lot of nods to the classics too, so MK11 can go there. You could put Deception over 11 though, but I think I'll keep 11 there for the culture. I do know a lot of people still really like this game, but the gameplay, it sucks. If it just had a little bit better gameplay, like a little bit, bro, like a little faster, maybe some juggles in there, this game would be insane, bro. But it is not. It is definitely not S tier, so I don't want to hear that shit. But their content is through the roof though, bro. So I'm gonna leave it right there on A for the culture. I think if I was a hothead mode right now, I'd probably put it in B tier, man, because I was so disappointed in this game. I know people were pissed off at this game after MKX. When you go to MKX to this, dog, like what the fuck, you know what I mean? You kind of think like, nah, no way. And yeah, so that's what I'm saying. And last but not least, we're looking at MK1 currently. MK1, I'm still putting over, at least for now, I'm putting over MK11 just because they have the game. It could be flip-flop however you want it. I think at the end of the day, MK1 might still be a top 5 game when it's all said and done, which is crazy. I know how much we hate it right now, but at the end of the day, I think it might be a top 5 game. If not, it's an honorable mention at number 6 probably. But yeah, I would probably, at least right now, I'm keeping it at A. Again, Mortal Kombat 1 hasn't been out for a year yet in this video, so I'm keeping it at A. Right, it's already an A tier game, especially when you look at the other games to the right of it. Like, for sure, if 1 had the amount of content that 11 had, this game would be S tier automatically. But it's still great for what it's doing. It gave us back the MKX, MK9 gameplay, juggles and all that. The cameo system kind of bounces back to the tag team in MK9. And yeah, I that's it for right now. It's pretty bland. It's pretty straightforward. It is what it is. It's more of just like a solid game. It's not a mid game, but it's definitely not as fun as we wanted it to be. I would put it over all these games, even OG MK1. So it was technically deemed to be a reboot. Wasn't a reboot. We were very, very shocked though on how this game's been delivered so far. I feel at the end of the day though, it might go right here just because of the gameplay. And I don't know, man. I feel like they're making a lot of wrong turns with this game. I think it still hold ground based on gameplay alone though. So yeah, that's just kind of my opinion on that. But yeah, this right here is the tier list. I think I might just keep it like that. 9X, Ultimate MK3, Shaolin Monks, MK2 as S tier. Then you got the A tier, MK1, MK11, Deception for sure, Trilogy, and the OG MK just for the culture. So 2 games for the culture I have there is MK11 and OG MK. B tier is Armageddon, MK Gold, MK4, Deadly Alliance, and MK versus DC. And then C tier, I'm gonna have MK3 and Mythology of Sub-Zero. Then D is gonna be Special Forces. I don't want to hear anybody try to like that game doesn't go any of those games. All right, man. So y'all let me know y'all's thoughts. I appreciate y'all. What would y'all change? I know a lot of people would just change MKX over MK9 probably, but nah, no shot. If you recognize the backstory of MK9. MK9 deserves to be there with credibility due to them coming back from bankruptcy though. But it is what it is. Let me know what's up. I appreciate y'all, man, and peace.